Welcome to another update video for my resource pack Barely Default. This update focuses on a bunch of redstone changes, block state changes, to make the game easier to understand. There's a lot of hidden info stored in some blocks, and vanilla Minecraft simply doesn't attribute a custom model to it. So I have, and that's basically what this entire update is about. First change on the agenda is not necessarily a redstone change, but definitely a tweak. Is a new custom model for the debug stick. This is just any debug stick. If you give yourself a debug stick, it'll look like this. It's still called a debug stick because who cares? And it's a funny custom model with some sneaky Easter eggs. First of all, if you left click with it, you hit with it turns into this karate fist, this karate chopping fist. And then if you right click with it, you point with it. And that's never really super visible because it always does the punching animation as well if you select a block. And that's just kind of like, I don't know, some fun features I thought I could add. It's more obvious if I put it in the other hand. And basically you never have a debug stick in the other hand because it doesn't even really work that way. It's super rare for a debug stick to be in the offhand or to even be in an item frame. So I figured this is like, I don't know, this is so dumb, but this is a fun Easter egg that I wanted to add. When you get to add this even, right? And then, to make it flip you off, I just think that this is like really funny. My girlfriend came up with it. I just initially just put it in the item frame like this, and I thought this could be like a nice pedestal, with some glass around it or whatever, show it off on an SMP. And then she had the idea to make it give you the finger. And then I decided, I'll do it when you shift. And I've also added a custom model for when you shift with a debug stick, because as you may or may not know, this is how you use a debug stick. You left click with it, and that's how you select a property that you want to change. Now we've selected property waterlock. Now we've selected shape. And then if we right click with it, we can change these states. So if we have waterlock selected, we can make it waterlock. And if we change the shape of it, we'll just flip it, or I guess turn it like this, you get it. And this will go through the states. And then if you shift while clicking with the debug stick, it'll go through the states in a reverse order. So so you can kind of like undo what you've just done, so you don't have to go through the entire list every time. You can kind of undo it. And I found myself, when I'm using a debug stick, kind of confused why I'm getting different results, whether or not I'm shifting. And then obviously it clicks. I'm not an idiot, I get it. You shift, you find it out. But I thought it would be nice to have a custom model for it. So I decided to go with the pose that Thanos kind of uses when he reverts time to take the Infinity Stone out of Vision's head. Spoilers, I guess, but that's how he reverses time. He has it like this, right? So since you're not going forwards through the property, but you're going backwards through the properties, I figured that would be fine. It's kind of fun. It's a fun little dynamic thing, and then you can also point with it, or do a karate chop. I don't know. So that's the first change in this update, focused on tweaks and changes to make the game easier, more visual stuff. And this one was kind of wild. The rest of the stuff, it's gonna ramp up slowly. Like these buttons, I've been showing them off. Basically, what I've done is I added a red area to the back of them, which is never visible except for when they're literally on glass. So I don't know if this is actually useful information. You can see if the button is on or not from the back. That's like it's in the spirit of this update, but I don't know if it's actually practically so useful. But it's one change I did, and then obviously all the buttons have custom UV as well. It looks a bit nicer than just using the raw blank texture or whatever material it is. Like 3D rails, also a visual tweak, but I did do some stuff to try to communicate the information in rails better. You can also take a look at my lever. You can see if it's on or off easily, right? You can see the inside of it. But for these special tracks, it's actually kind of hard to see the type if a minecart is on top of them. With the vanilla textures, that kind of obstructs the information that this is an activator rail, and this is a detector rail, and this is a powered rail, right? So I added back by making the tips of these rails gold. Of powered rails, it's gold, so you can tell from the side if there's a minecart on it. You can easily tell what type of rail it is. For detector rail, since it's supposed to emit a redstone signal to the side, right? I made the tips redstone, so it's easy to tell that's the rail. And then activator rails, I didn't really change them because you can still tell whether or not they're on or off from the side there as well, So those are small changes to rails, and then we can move on to the next feature, which you can probably guess what it is, considering there's a big wool structure around it. Yes, it's Scoke. Scoke is another block that has a bunch of hidden states. One of those is when it's inactive, and I didn't even know this, but apparently, and I don't even know if this is like super practically useful, but after Scoke is activated, it goes inactive for a couple of ticks. You see that? When the tentacles are a bit smaller. And in vanilla, there's no model for it. Tentacles don't become smaller, it just switches between the two tentacle states. So yeah, I added a third one with the shorter tentacles, so you can see when it's inactive, and it's only a couple of ticks. I don't know when this is practically ever useful. But another cool thing I did is I added tentacles to the bottom of Scoke, which is never really noticeable if these spawn naturally, but I still think it's a cool look, I don't think it's super obstructive. And this is basically just so you can see the state of the Scoke sensor from the bottom. A Scoke sensor is a kind of block where I don't really want to add like a redstone dot to it or whatever, right, to signify how much strength it's emitting, because that's also information I can add, but I don't like that for Scoke, right? It's supposed to be like a natural block. That's pretty important to me, and I get that it also has redstone purposes, but I didn't want to go further than adding tentacles to the bottom, And then for calibrated Scoke sensors, I went a little bit further. Obviously, I added tentacles to the bottom, and I also gave them a state for if they're inactive, which for these things also is just like it's just a few ticks. Like, it's never really useful, but now you know. they're inactive for a couple of seconds. And also, as you might be able to tell, the amethyst crystal right there, it glows depending on the redstone strength it emits, which is admittedly pretty hard to see. You know, it's pretty hard to like just by eye, you know, to be able to tell what the redstone strength is. But Barely Default is not the type of pack where I want to add like literal numbers on the sculk sensor. Like I've seen redstone tweak packs do that. That's not a vision that I want to follow. That doesn't fit my vision at least. So what I did is just, you know, added like a little redstone glow. I hope you can see it. That represents how much power it is emitting. Look, it's a small redstone glow in the middle of the amethyst now. And as we get closer and our footsteps get louder, the glow should get bigger until the you know, the crystal is just completely red when we're right next to it. Or if you place a block next to it, that's a really loud sound. And then I did add like a redstone button at the bottom of this block, which also just glows brighter the more redstone it emits. Which is like, again, it's not as useful as a literal number like some redstone tweaks packs do. But this is the way that I like to do it, you know. But whatever, it's there now. More information available through the pack, right? Moving on to daylight sensors, a pretty simple change. I gave them a little redstone dot that just as the amethyst crystals or their bottom side gets brighter or darker depending on how much strength they emit. So right now it's full day, so the daylight sensor set to daytime is gonna emit max strength. And then I got a command block here and we can use that to change the time of day. And we can actually see that this little redstone ball get less bright. You see that? And that's like, I won't keep saying it, but it's not as literally useful as like a number, like, oh, 1 redstone strength, 2. But that's not how Minecraft works. That's not how redstone wire works either. Look, this one gets brighter now because it gets more power. And I also changed the bottom texture of data detectors so you can tell which state they're set to from the bottom as well, right? I don't even know why these things have a custom bottom texture, you know. It's much more useful to be able to see this texture so you know if they're toggled to day or night. And then for the lectern, a really simple change. Basically, this block has states, not that one. It's power. There you go. Look, it can emit a redstone signal, and now I gave it, you know, I just added a little redstone dot to it that's either on or off. When it emits that, I didn't even really know this, is when a page is flipped. So in single player, you basically never see this because you're gonna have to like line it up really specifically to even see it. Look, you can see it right there. It's like darkened because of the GUI, right? But if we flip a page, you can see the light does go on. So it is a feature. Technically the data for it is there. The block stores it, whether it's emitting power or not, but there was no visual for it. So that's what I did. And then for the target blocks, another case, I didn't want to do numbers. So I did a gradient, you know, it just gets redder and redder and also closer to the center, the closer your arrow hits to the center, right? It's basically an encroaching gradient that starts from the sides. That's where the brightness starts and then it slowly creeps up to the middle. It's pretty straightforward. Hit the sides and the side of the ring changes, and the closer you are to the middle, more of the center changes. And if you hit it right smack dab in the middle, it'll be really super bright. It should be obvious, but also one of those cases where I think you should just be building like a lamp structure, you know? Like, I know this is not how it works, but like you can do that, right? And then you have visuals like ding 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 ding, you know? Like that's kind of how Minecraft works. You're not literally supposed to know like ding, oh, you've hit 15, you know? Like I don't think that's really immersive. So this is how I did targets, you know, a gradual gradient, a lot of textures because they have custom top textures and custom side textures, but don't worry about it. It's all really well optimized, and we will actually move on to cauldrons. I've added a custom texture for them because I don't know, I kind of figured the default texture could probably be improved. So I whipped up this bad boy. I think it looks pretty nice. Cauldrons have different models for if there's liquids inside, right? And you can't really see that information from the outside normally, right? I mean, you'd have to walk over to the top to see how full it is or even what's inside in some cases. And I've seen a lot of tweak packs that would put like a bar on it or whatever, like a little glass thermometer bar that shows the liquid like rising. And that's, I guess it's clever, but I don't want to change the cauldron to be that. Like this is a cauldron, you know, it's a big metal chunk. It's a soup pot. It's whatever it's used for. That's what a cauldron is. I don't want to turn it into a thing with a little glass like bars. You can see the liquid inside. Like I get that it's practical, but that's not how I wanted to do it. So I did it in different ways for every liquid in an as immersive way as I could. We'll go over them one by one. For water, it's super subtle. I don't even know if this is really helpful unless you're literally taking out the bottles. Like if you're walking into a room and you see 3 cauldrons, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell how full they are just from the side texture, but we can actually go through the changes here. Basically, I just made the cauldron a little bit bluer and a little bit darker right where the water level is. Like this can kind of represent condensation or whatever. I don't know what else to do for a cauldron because it's metal, you know, something that's immersive. So maybe this is not the best. If you have a better idea, let me know in the comments below. But for the time being, it's at least useful if you're literally standing next to it. I mean, you can see it change, right, if you're standing next to it, so that's cool. For lava, I made it glow. It's actually an animated texture. It's pretty nice. It's a slow animation, but it just, you know, it just helps make the block feel a little bit more alive. You know, lava is a moving liquid, obviously. It also has a bottom texture. You can see glow from that side as well. So from every angle, you know that the lava is ready. And then for powders, snow, I added these like little encroaching ice crystals. And as a bottom texture as well. Basically, the metal just kind of freezes over. I kind of think that's realistic. It's a nice way to do it for powder snow. An immersive way to do it. The immersive, barely default way that I figured that I wanted to do it for powder snow cauldrons. And any pixel artist watching this will notice that this texture is using a gradient. And that should be like a big no-no in pixel art. This is one of those cases where if you know the rules, you can break them. Because obviously you shouldn't use gradients in pixel art, right? Like, I can't do it. Friends, let me just take a simple screenshot of the Minecraft world. Here, let me take a screenshot here. Open it up in paint.net. And then if I use the magic wand tool and I have the tolerance set to 0%, I can see how much of one specific color is present in an image. And if we zoom into any area that is cast into any shadow whatsoever, we'll see that it's made up of infinite colors. Like a limited palette is good for pixel art, okay? But if you know how to make pixel art, you can mess around with gradients because the entire Minecraft world is gradiented up. It's so much part of the Minecraft art style, you don't even know. This is all a gradient. This is infinite colors, okay? This is not a limited palette at all. And this stuff is just going on everywhere in game. So a gradient, technically not really pixel art, but a really good way to showcase that the cauldron is just really hot right now. Next up is no blocks, another block that has a lot of information, and default Minecraft shows 0 of it. Obviously they can be tuned to different pitches, and in default Minecraft I guess you just kind of do it by ear or something. Here it shows the literal notes, that's really useful. And obviously I also have top textures for every instrument. I mean, I have a whole video about these, so I'm not even gonna go into it right now. What is new, however, are these mob head sprites. So if you put a mob head on a no block or even a player head, it's gonna get a custom texture, which is just, I don't know, nice for map making, I guess. It's just funny, immersive. I don't know, let me know what you think. This is silly, but more information at least, right? Next up we got bee nests and beehives, which are in truth kind of like a crop. Like you don't really notice because this is the sprites in default. This is literally the texture. I didn't even add a texture for this. Like I just referenced the vanilla texture. So this is the texture when it's completely ready in default Minecraft, and then this is the texture for when it's not ready, and then there's nothing in between. So I thought, you know, an easy thing to do is have the honey level increase by a pixel every time. So that's what I did till it's back to the default texture. But I didn't think that texture was good enough to represent a bee nest just overflowing with honey. So I added a new texture that just has a bit more honey, and it also has some honey from all the sides. So there's no honey encroaching from all the other sides in any of the other states. You can only see the honey level from the front. But then on the final stage, it should be pretty obvious from all angles that it's ready, right? Like even the top has honey, the bottom has honey. It has this little honey drip right there, and I mean, you know, the honey is just abundant. So it might take some getting used to, but it should be pretty clear when a bee nest or a beehive is ready. And it's basically the same deal here, you know, just from the front texture, you'll be able to tell that the honey levels are growing. And then when it's ready, I mean, the model literally gets bigger, right? Like as if the lid is like floating on top of the honey. That's kind of how I imagined it, because that's how full it is. And then also you have this little dangly honey bit. So it should be pretty obvious from all angles that it's ready as well. Another nice little block state tweak, you know, to convey a bit more information about the Minecraft world. And another block that needed that desperately is observers. So first of all, I've changed the observer's funny little face to a big eye. I don't know why, just wanted the big eye in my Minecraft, I guess, you know. We didn't really have that. Watch Mojang literally add like an eye block in the next update, but that's okay. I thought it was nice, something unique. And then because this is a lot of redstone, right? I mean, we'll turn it on as well so you can see the on texture as well. But this is a lot of red, so I don't want to confuse people that, I mean, obviously they've also added arrows, so it should be pretty obvious where the output is. But I did want to make the output a bit more obvious, so I made it 3D. And then yeah, there's arrows, so you can see from every angle which way it's pointing, which also makes stuff like this possible. Like this is a really fun thing that you couldn't really do with my pack. And now you can do this, and I don't know what that's useful for. I guess like racetracks, right? Like showing which direction to drive, or like, I don't know, just maps in general, or like a casino or something. I don't know where this is useful, but now you can make a funny thing like this, right? Because of the glowing arrows that I added, which is just useful information. So everything that this update is about, basically. And if you're like me and you ever build like a little statue like this, you know how you use an observer as a face, this is what it would look like now. It still looks fine. It's just a funny eye guy now. It's not a face guy. And if you do want a face, you can get the dispenser or a dropper, because I also changed those. It's a completely valid face too. I guess we'll skip the pistons for now. We'll go over to the dispensers and the droppers. They needed a new texture as well to be able to tell which way they're facing from all angles, and whether it's a dispenser or a dropper. And the differences here are subtle, because I do feel like, you know, these are definitely sister blocks, cousin blocks, whatever. I do really want to keep them in the same style. This guy looks kind of angry, which is referencing the OG dispenser texture, which kind of had arrows, which kind of made the whole block look kind of angry. And then the default dispenser doesn't even look that angry, but it's a shooting block. It should be kind of angry. I don't know if it should be angry, but it fits at least for the block, I figured. And then I gave it like the shield at the top. Figured that makes sense. Like if it's a block that is shooting, it's probably gonna be a block that's also taking a lot of heat back, right? I feel like that's usually how it would work. So I thought like a shielded design where it looks like it has like a stronger protective layer at the front would be fun. And then the differences between the dropper and the dispenser. Basically these lines go vertical on the dispenser, and on the dropper they're horizontal. And I kind of figured that horizontal lines like this kind of invoke more of an industrial vibe, like maybe an industrial machine, whereas vertical lines like this kind of invokes a weapon more. I thought it was more aggressive. Let me know if that's like true. That's kind of, I just went with feels here. So, and then the top of the dropper has kind of this square going on, and then the top of the dispenser has a line in it. So you got a little bit of memorization going on, but once you get familiar with these blocks, it should be plenty clear which way they're facing without me having to add arrows everywhere, because I don't really think that that's the most creatively validating. And then the backs of these blocks, just wanted to do something fun with it. There's a hopper in the dropper. Makes sense, you know. It's used in a recipe for some reason, and I think it's just a nice little detail to have at the back. And then for the dispenser, I kind of did this grid pattern, which could represent its inventory. I don't know if that's literally what's going on. Like, I'll leave it up to your interpretation. When I made this, I kind of intended for this to be like the back of a bazooka. You know how like rocket launchers, they have like holes in the back as well, to like an exhaust sort of thing. And I figured if you're shooting out stuff from the front, then maybe you need an exhaust. So whatever this is, there's like little squares at the back. I'll leave it up to you what you think this is. And obviously their vertical states have custom textures too, because I always thought it was a huge shame that they lost their funny face. These guys are the face block. The observer came after. These two blocks are the face blocks in Minecraft. I guess jack-o'-lanterns are as well, but you get what I mean, right? So I thought it was a huge shame that they lost their faces when they're placed vertically. And since I needed an indicator, right, to showcase which way they're aiming and which block it is and stuff, what's a better indicator than their face? So cute little faces. I mean, it's not sort of something I would normally do. I would never put a face on a block that doesn't have one. That's not the type of pack this is. For these blocks, I'm so happy to be adding the face back, you know. And then the rest of the blocks kind of basic, you know. You got the line here again. This dropper has the square. Just a unique take on these blocks. Try to do something new, you know, something fresh, something better, and also something close to me. And then this is what I came up with. And the next block is a lot more vanilla, I guess. Hoppers. First of all, I made them a bit deeper. And the reason for that is so that you, from the top, you can see which way they're pointing. If it's pointing to the right, it'll have a little hole there. And then the direction of the hole changes. So that is like literally a way to be able to tell which way it's facing. So that's my little quirky, immersive way of doing it. I did add an arrow on the outside for where it's facing, because I do admit, especially if you're standing above it, this tube is a bit hard to see. Like I said, I don't really like adding arrows, especially on things like a hopper or a cauldron or something like that. You know, this is just a hopper. You know, it's not supposed to be like this thing with diagraphs in it or like whatever. But this is something I was fine with doing. And then if you lock one, the model changes significantly. The lid closes off. No more stuff going through. There's also some changes to the side of the texture. See here? Like there's like, I don't know what this is. There's a little extra ring that kind of slides in or whatever, without having to add like redstone lines to the hopper. Like people could use this for other stuff too. I don't know what, but like then you suddenly have redstone lines. I just didn't want to do it. So this was a nice way that I figured I could do it. This is like super stupid. You'll never notice, but even the bottom hole gets closed off. You see that? Isn't that nice? Maybe not. Nobody cares. But that's what I did for hoppers anyways. Some changes to pistons. Obviously you can see I've made the sticky piston completely slimy. There's slime just on every corner. From every angle you'll be able to tell that it's a sticky piston. In default from the back you can't even tell what type of piston it is, right? Whether it's a normal one or a sticky one. So now it's should be plenty clear. Even the inside of the sticky piston is sticky. And you also notice this dot at the back of the piston. That's just an indicator of that it's on. The default piston model is actually pretty good for seeing if it's on or not. From this side, I mean, you know, you got a piston head in your face, so it's pretty obvious if it's on. This side, either there's a piston head there or there isn't. From the back, there was no way of knowing, so now there's a little light. Pretty simple. Nothing new going on here. No extra information for these blocks, but I did change the redstone torch model to this bigger inverted cube. Thought it was worth showing off if you've never seen it. I think it's a good take on it. My pack also has torch decorations, like if you rename a variety of materials to sconce, you get this funny looking item which you can put in an item frame, and then if you put a torch behind it, it'll perfectly slide over the torch. And that's not really like a redstone tweak, and I've done a whole video about it, so I'm not going to go into that now. But yeah, I just wanted to show off how my redstone torch looks with these sconces, which I think is pretty nice. It's a nice take on a redstone torch, and that's it. There's nothing special going on here otherwise. But I did manage to squeeze in some useful changes. The scaffolding, first of all, I simply changed their top texture, so it's a bit easier to see through. I found myself sometimes feeling kind of claustrophobic when inside this block, and now, you know, I've literally removed some pixels, so it's literally just easier to see through. I don't know if that's like a huge tweak, but I think it's pretty valuable to me. And then also when the scaffolding has reached its end, I've removed the bars here, so you can still see it in the hitbox, but it's just I thought it was a nice subtle way to showcase that the scaffolding was running out, or at least that it's reached its limit, right? And then I can also change which model the game uses for the falling scaffolding, which in default is this model, which is kind of silly, because in 99% of the cases when scaffolding falls to the bottom, it ends up in this shape. Like, I don't even know if there's any case in which it would not look like a table, because I'm pretty sure even if it lands on this, no one will notice that I changed this. But I did change this. I changed the model for falling scaffolding to be the table, so this is a bit more smoother. If you've ever seen a default that it's kind of awkward when the scaffolding falls and then places and changes its model to a table, that's not the case anymore. I don't even know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but it's something I did, okay? Like this, a tiny little change to the final stage of an Amethyst cluster. Composter. So when it's ready to be harvested and give you maximum Amethyst charge, it'll have a subtle glow to it. You know, just so you know, I think it's already pretty obvious when it's ready, like it's huge. But a subtle shine like this, you know, it's harmless. It adds to the block, I think, and these guys don't have it. So if you are unsure in any case, you know, just look for the glow that appears. A useful change, the composters. Again, I didn't want to add a bar to it, but I did want to make them see-through. Now the composter is apparently like a full block, so you can't really make it see-through, but I still managed to do it by having the back texture not be see-through. So there is actually a texture right here, but it only appears if you're inside. So if you're inside of it, you cannot see outside of it, but from the outside you can see into it. And that is also how I added the redstone tweak for this block, because if you start to put stuff in, normally you would have to like look inside of it, right, to see how full it is, and now you can kind of see it from the side, right, because there's, you know, you can see inside of it, right? It's pretty subtle. It's not the best. I'm pretty sure there's some states where you don't even see any change. This is the only way I was willing to do it. You know, I think it's an immersive way. It's just a little basket. I don't want to add a bar to a little basket. I want to keep it sleek. I want to keep it immersive. So this is what I came up with for the composter. And then the next change is a really rad one. I've had this one in the pack for a while, and I'll just keep expanding it every time they add more wood types. Basically, saplings have a hidden aging mechanic. As the sapling gets ready to become a tree, it goes from stage 0 to stage 1, which it doesn't have a model for in default. I don't know why. It's a huge shame, because this is actually really nice information. You know, if your saplings are growing, this is how you know it's almost turning into a tree, because it got a little bit bigger. Like, this is how it should work in vanilla Minecraft as well. Obviously it doesn't, so I added custom saplings for all trees. All saplings have this. They just have hidden block states. But good thing for me, because then I can get to make my pack a lot better. So, and I did exactly the same thing for crops, potatoes and carrots at least. Default they have 4 stages, but the actual block has twice as much. So I added models for all the stages, you know, so your farm just looks a bit more immersive, a bit more variety in crops, and it is literally information. So now you know this crop has grown a little bit further than this crop. Super useful, I don't know, but added information. Just like this, the added information for farmland. It has 7 states for if it's dehydrating. I bet you didn't even know that, but farmland dehydrates gradually. Like if you have dry farmland and you put water around it and it starts to hydrate, it does not do it gradually. It does it instantly, even with the pack. That's just how Minecraft does it. It goes from unhydrated to hydrated instantly. But if it is dehydrated, if you remove the water source, that's when it actually starts gradually decreasing, which is a funny effect that you rarely get to see. But if it happens, you'll have this massive field that'll just kind of like, I don't know, it's really dumb. Like, why did I add all these states? It's barely useful, but it's barely default, so maybe it's okay. A few more changes, hang in there. Hope you're all enjoying the video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel, because I'm gonna keep doing changes like this and taking you guys' feedback if there's anything missing or anything that I should change. But yeah, chorus flowers in vanilla Minecraft, they're either fully blooming or they're just dead, but there are stages in between, just like a crop. So I add models for all of them, and I also, you know, just added a model for them in general. I made this pretty petal leafy thing, this alien looking thing, and the petals just kind of get smaller as it dies until it's dead and it looks like this, which is kind of pathetic and not so impressive, especially if you've seen this. But a very nice thing to grow, you know. I want to grow chorus flowers now, you know. This is like a genuinely cool decorative thing to have in your base. It's a shame that they all die down and they all end up looking like this. Maybe I should inverse the aging process. Maybe they should look like this when they're dead. Technically they're dead. Technically they'd be dead, but they would look pretty. They would end up looking pretty and not like look pretty in the beginning and then just kind of wither away. Let me know what you think about that, because this is the canon way for chorus flowers to work, right? They'll all end up like these, which is the non-pretty version. Maybe I should invert it. Let me know what you think. Comment below. Some practical changes to items here. If you have any copper block and if it's waxed, the item texture for it will have a honeycomb on it, which is just nice so you're not confused about which block you're using. That's not a huge deal. Like, it's a bigger deal if you're accidentally building with silverfish blocks. Obviously, I also added a little indicator for it. You know, that'll never accidentally go wrong again because you can see the little silverfish on it. But these blocks are intended to not have an indicator in game. They're supposed to just be exact same block as their non-waxed or non-infested counter type, right? So the in-world block remains completely unchanged. I added 0 indicator. I didn't want to do it. I could do it. It's possible. I did not want to do it. I think it messes with the gameplay in a way that's unintended, but it's a huge shame if you build a huge castle out of silverfish blocks without noticing, and then when you break one and then the entire castle starts coming apart. That's a huge shame. So these indicators are really useful. I got another block related thing here. If you put a record into a jukebox, the model will change to have a record spinning on top. And now I can't have this be dependent on the song. It's always the same record, but it's nice, you know. It reminds you actually, like sometimes the song finishes, you don't even know that there's still a record in there. Minecraft doesn't tell you that information until you right click it to take it out, which isn't a huge deal. You could lose your favorite record, I guess, walking around your base like, where's the record? Oh, here it is, you know, it's sticking out of the jukebox. So not super useful, but it is literally information I could add. So that's what I did. This chest just has bundles, new texture for empty bundles. All bundles get the same texture, and then if you put anything in it, even if it's just one thing, the texture already changes to this like normal looking bundle texture. And then it has a few textures in between for if it fills up, you know, just a bit more immersion, but also kind of useful maybe, probably. Look at it when it's completely full, it's gonna be this big round bag that you're carrying around, and it's the same sprite for all the bundles, right? Just different colors. I figured it fit the update as well. And then the final change that I have to show off is one for unstable TNT. Can you tell which one of these is the unstable TNT. It is the one that has the wrong N, which I believe is this one. So it's a subtle change, you know. I thought it was funny, like it's unstable, it's written wrong. Thought it kind of fits the vibe, but I didn't want to like turn it into a completely different block or like put a warning block on it. Oh, watch out. Write the word unstable on it or something. Because I don't know how map makers use this, right? Maybe it's supposed to just blend into normal TNT. Like maybe you're playing a map and you just have a bunch of normal TNT that you can disarm, and then suddenly in the midst of that there's unstable TNT, right? And then you hit it like, no, right? So I don't really know what the intended. Oh, so to not affect traps that are set out in that way, it's only a subtle change, like having the N reversed, right? And that's it. That is the better information / redstone / blockstate update of Barely Default. My pack is out. It's free. If you want to support me, become a channel member. I also have a Discord server you can join. We play Minecraft. We got a nice community going on. There's also a Barely Default data pack. Check it out. All the links will be below, and I'll see you in another video. Bye bye.